Morning, my dear.
Good morning, top of the morning to you,
The rest of the day to you.
Fabian, Lynn, everybody here at ACIM gather. Good morning. And I was just listening to what we,
Oh, I lost you. I lost you. Wait a minute. I'm
uh,
sorry. Okay, wait a second. Got me? You there?
yes,
Oh, good. Okay.
I was just listening to the audio from Regis. There's Regis, and welcome, Regis. And I was just thinking of that entire hour he spoke. He was talking about just love. It doesn't matter if people love you, just love. And I think it's a great message. Hi Sharon, love. Hi Sharon. Just love. And then he talked about the I can't think of the guy who went through the Holocaust. I can't think of his name, but he just saw himself in the future, uh, uh, teaching on how we got through the Holocaust, and it helped him to get through the Holocaust by seeing himself in a loving setting. And I thought that was a great that was a great hour listening to it. And then there's the woman who never looked better because she had a new dog and she loved her dog, you know. And I'm thinking of Happy, here's my dog Happy, and he just loves me, and I just love Happy. And I guess you need someone to love, or maybe not someone, but you just got to love. What do you think, Myrna?
Absolutely. I've had Rusty for 17 years. And I told this amazing story about he had fallen into the canal, and I didn't know he was in the canal. And he swam at 17 years old, never having been in the water before, 600 feet to safety, which was incredible because 600 feet is the equivalent of 2 football fields. And somebody said he must have been swimming to you. I mean, and he swam. I mean, somebody pulled him out, but nevertheless, he survived, which nobody could believe he did. And yes, they do give us so much, and we give them back the same, love. Love is love, right? Love is the way you feel it. Um, it's a good topic. I'll tell you why. You know what I really want to talk about today?
Tell
I
me.
want to talk about angels.
Okay.
And the Course in Miracles refers to angels, and I'll get into that a little bit later about how the Course in Miracles speaks of angels. In fact, I went to Circle of Atonement, and it says there are 15 references to angels in A Course in Miracles, including Song of Prayer, and they also appear throughout Helen Schickman's poems. Helen Schickman is A Course in Miracles scribe. So I said, oh, it's a great topic. I love it, especially since something happened this weekend. An earring had fallen behind my dresser. So I pulled it back. And what did I find? I found this feather behind. Now, I don't know if you know, but how this feather got there, I'll never know. Oh, I do know. It was an angel, for sure. Because if you read about angels, feathers is a foremost topic regarding the appearance of angels, feathers. In fact, when my sister died, the day after she died, I opened my front door and I found a feather outside my door. I mentioned it at her eulogy, in fact. So angels have always been something in my life that I've cherished, really. And I want to go back to a story first, okay, which I never forgot. It was way back when I was first married to Charlie. There were 5 kids among us. He had 3 from his first marriage. I had 2. And we were taking them skiing. In fact, Charlie had just had a back operation and he wasn't going to go skiing, but we were taking the kids. We were meeting our friends in Vermont. So we loaded up the station wagon full of kids, 5 kids, and all the luggage. We're going skiing. And now it's a long trip, a long drive. There's a lot of a lonesome highway, where you don't see a car for miles and miles around. And suddenly there was a blowout. the car had a blowout. Now, what did we do? We didn't have cell phones in those days. It was starting to drizzle. There wasn't a car in sight. All you could see was highway going one way and the other way. And in fact, his little 9-year-old started to cry when suddenly a white truck pulled up, a white truck out of nowhere. And in the truck was a man wearing white coveralls. He came out of the truck, and next to him was a white dog. I'll never forget it. It looked like a white German shepherd. And he proceeded without saying a word, took the tools. I would say maybe within minutes, the tire was fixed. He changed it or fixed it. I don't know what, but it was done. And never said a word, not a word. Charlie tried to give him money, and he went like that. No, just shook his head, jumped in his truck, and away he went. And first we were all flabbergasted. We didn't know what happened because it happened so fast. We looked up the highway, there was no truck. We looked the other way, there was no truck in sight. So I always said it had to be an angel. It had to be an angel on the highway rescuing us. And that was one story. And I have had a couple of incidents regarding where I've encountered angels, which I know that they're there. I just know it. And I just want to mention too, this is something I never shared before, but when I go to sleep at night and I'm in bed, I hear muffled voices. It sounds almost like the TV is on in the other room. Now, I never shared this with anyone because you'd think I was crazy. You know, she's hearing voices in her head. But I know that's what they are. They're angels. I listen to them for a while and then I fall asleep. And this is something that I've gotten used to happening. So I'm very intrigued by the subject of the angels. What does the Course in Miracles say about angels? Interesting. The Course says angels are real and were created by God. And what do these, and this is from Circle of Atonement, by the way, what do these references tell us about angels? Well, actually, they're not just symbols or metaphors. They refer to them as real. And it says, exactly from the Course in Miracles, your newborn purpose is nursed by angels, cherished by the Holy Spirit, and protected by God himself. So angels are in the picture, and this tells me that our newborn purpose is awakening, and they assist us in awakening. That's what they're there for. And what do angels do according to A Course in Miracles? Very simple, very simply. They serve our awakening. Angels offer real protection, protecting our minds from unloving thoughts. And all of this, I picked up wanting to know more and more about, because I wanted to bring the subject up today. And I just want to read the last paragraph. They have intense love for us. They adore Jesus because they're shown to announce his birth. They minister to him in the desert. They show up at his tomb and announce his resurrection as God's servants. They love all that God loves and what God does love more. And what does God love more than his own son? We are God's son. So what does God love more than us? I mean, there's nothing God could love more than his creations. We are his creations. And that kind of got me into the feeling of connecting with God. You know, yeah, that's all out of love. We speak about love. You were speaking about it a little while ago. And then I just want to mention this, and I'll read it later, from Private Lessons with Jesus. I'm not going to read it now. I want to turn it over to you first. But it just so happens, and I just picked it up a few minutes ago, and I couldn't believe it. Lesson 346, which is today's lesson. I speak about angels in lesson 346. And I swear to you, I didn't know it until 5 minutes before I opened up with this, intending to talk about angels. So I'm really so flying high this morning. Anyway, I want to turn it over to you. But we speak about love. So love is a good topic, including angels.
Wow, 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 wow. You must have a pure mind, because my idea about angels is, of course, they are real but you're not always aware of angels unless your mind is pure. It says miracles or everyone's right, but purification is necessary first. I love that story of a white truck with a man dressed in white with a white
The
dog.
white dog, I swear to God, swear.
That's a story right out of heaven, really. I mean, give me a break. I mean, you can't make up a story like.
No, believe me, I can't.
Okay, so yeah, but that says a lot about your mind magnetizing and attracting that kind of a miracle. I mean, come on, there was no one around for miles, and you have a flat tire on a rainy day, right?
On a rainy day, yes, on the way to Vermont. But my husband just had a back operation, which you couldn't change the tire if you wanted to. And then there were no cell phones in those days. You couldn't even call anybody.
Oh
So,
God,
think about that. I don't know. It
yeah.
just a miracle, yes. And I just as long and believe me, I want to turn this over to you, but I got to read this. Really, I do, because this came from Private Lessons with Jesus. Okay, and I have to just read this. Lesson 346, which is today's lesson. Today, the peace of God envelops me, and I forget all things except his love. So this came from Private Lessons with. Now, it's strange that it disappeared today, today's lesson. The love of your creator saves you from all perceived difficulties. What greater truth can you ask? When you are close to God, everything you always thought to be more desirous pales by comparison. It is a love so intense that it draws you like a magnet, and nothing is as it was before. You can spark greater exuberance what can spark greater exuberance than recognition of his love enveloping you? To be enveloped by God establishes your holiness, for in holiness you were born. Give God your all and know his earthly angels are guiding you through hazardous times, which does not obscure his love but strengthens it. God holds your hand as you walk through the barriers that he makes transparent and therefore easier to pass through, that you may find peace. When you feel his love in this way, know that it is because you have surrendered to it, not forgotten it. Oh, I'm just going to just die right now. I have to turn this over to you because
Yeah. Well,
I'm crying.
I'm listening to you. It's funny. I was just about to read from lesson 344. I had no idea you were going to read from 346.
Okay,
I put
yeah.
on the board, maybe I'll put in the room so people in the room can see it too. And this is called the law of love. I call it the law of love. You find it in lessons 126. What I give to myself. I call it the law of love, the law of mind, the law of God. What we give to ourselves. That's what the Course calls extending. You're extending to the one self. Now, if you're resisting, you're holding back, waiting for someone to love you. I went through a good part of my life doing that and waiting, and finally, all of a sudden, miracles happen because you recognize that I am one self. What I give to myself. That's the law of love, the law of God, the law of mind. Now you find the exact same thing. Believe it or not, of course, he constantly is repeating himself. Lesson 344, which we just did a few days ago, and if it's okay, I'm going to read from lesson 344. And this is what he says. It says, today I learned the law of love. Today I learned the law of love. I mean, why are you waiting all the way to lesson 344? Why not on 44? All right. Today I learned the law of love. But he says the same thing all over. I mean, he says it on 44. He says it on 134. He says it on 132. He says it on 140. He's always talking about the law of love. What you give to yourself. And it says, but what I give my brother is my gift to me. This is your law, my father, not my own law. I have not understood what giving means, and I thought to save what I desired for myself alone. Yeah, so in this world, you make idols because idols cannot really love you back. In the old days, they had a totem pole, or they had the sun god or something like that. They had the moon god, something that could not love them back, but they idolized it, and that's what we were talking about yesterday in chapter 25, section 9, the justice of heaven. And basically we make substitutes for the love of God. We have actually make idols. So the word idol seems to be like a spiritual religious word, but no, the word substitute. We substitute one thing for another. So the part of us that is the ego doesn't know anything about love. It's the resistance to love. So it pushes love away, which is why we feel alone, separate, afraid. We push love away, and in that pushing away, we think that we're right, and others have done us wrong. Others have done us wrong, and that's why the world looks exactly the way it looks. It looks like a world of differences. Me over here, and you have done me wrong. You have done me wrong. So, in truth, this is a dream, and we're the dream of the dream, and we have chosen to believe that God doesn't love us anymore. He kicked us out of the garden, and I'm going to find my own special love, a love that's, give me something that I don't have now, which is, of course, a joke, because what we are is everything that there is. The Son of God is whole, perfect, complete, and has everything that the Father has, because the Father simply extended himself to be as his Son is. His Father and Son are the same one, not two. That's why we don't study two-ness, we study oneness. Oneness is non-duality. Oneness is the idea that we are equal, we are one, we are the same, And nowhere in this world can anyone tell you about sameness. And not even identical twins are the same, because the world was made for differences so that we can try to love something that's different than us. Actually, you can't really love something different than you, because love is just extended and embraces itself. That's all it is. True love embraces itself. Ego's idea of love is, well, I love you. I hope you love me too, because if you stop loving me, I'm going to stop loving you. So the ego likes to be in charge, in control. Love has no control at all. Love simply is. It's an isness, like God is, love is, peace is. It's an isness. There's no rules to love. There's no, well, there is a law of love that what I give to myself. So with that, I'm going to turn it back on over to you, love.
Oh, I'm so glad you picked love as a topic. That's great. The way you said that we didn't realize God's love. We thought we were kicked out of the Garden of Eden by God because whatever the ego told us was the reason. But the truth is that we never lost God's love. And 344, 300, lesson 344, yes. Today I learned the law of love, and what I give my brother is my gift to me. And it shows us that, it certainly shows us that whatever God gives us, he gives to our brother as well. And therefore he shares with us, and it's up to us to share with them. The sentence here at the very end of lesson 344, how close the ending of the dream of sin. That's it, it's a dream of sin. We dreamt that, it never really happened. And the redemption of God, of the Son of God, we have been redeemed. We were never lost to God. So we're redeemed. At least we know of that redemption. We feel it. We recognize the Course in Miracles assures us that we are. And we've all had snippets and pieces of that feeling, all of us at one time or another. And it's there. It's there. We just have to recognize that it's there and not be so fearful. And I think once we know that it's there, once we have that ability to know that God is with us always, then we know that there's nothing to fear. Because yes, with God loves us more. What could he love more than his son? As it says in the Course in Miracles, what could he love more than that? I'm going to read a little bit from the prayer, which it starts out with a prayer. This is your law, my Father, not my own. So the ego didn't create that law of love. God did. God's law. I have not understood what giving means and thought to save what I desired for myself alone. So we didn't realize that it was necessary to share, didn't realize it was necessary for us to extend. We thought it was just, what we created was what we thought was ours alone. And that was as far as that we took it. We didn't realize that desire alone, which is the ego's desire, because I desired for myself alone is the ego, that there would be a lot of pain that we couldn't decipher. We couldn't recognize it as our own pain, and it's very frightening when that happens. And as I looked upon your treasure that I thought I had, I found an empty place where nothing ever was or will be. And as I looked upon the treasure that I thought I had, I found an empty space. Well, here we go again, the ego. This, when we don't realize that we're with God and we think we're doing it alone, and then this is for us alone, then what is there but an empty space? And what is an empty space? An empty space is loneliness, isn't it?
Yes.
And as I looked upon the treasure that I thought I had, I found an empty place. Okay. Who can share a dream? And what can an illusion offer me? So this whole prayer goes into the illusion of what are we getting out of the illusion? What are we gaining? What have we found? We're finding a lot of pain. That's what we're really finding, a lot of devastation, pain, havoc, untruth, difficulty, fear. Everything other than love falls under that category. Yet he whom I forgive, yet he whom I forgive will give me gifts beyond the worth of anything on earth. Because when we can love, the gifts that I received, are gifts given to me, and they're worth far beyond anything we can find in this world. There's nothing that compares to God's love, and God's love teaches us how to love with the understanding of what true love really is. There's nothing that compares to God's love. Let my forgiven brothers fill my store with heaven's treasures, which alone are real. So again, it talks about forgiveness and how important it is that we know how to forgive. Forgiveness is the utmost importance, the reverence, the cornerstone of A Course in Miracles is forgiveness. We must forgive. We must, no matter what we think we are deserving of feeling against someone else. It doesn't matter, because it never happened. According to God, he didn't even know it happened. So why even wallow in it when it's there for us to understand that it's the forgiving attitude that heals us from everything. Let my forgiven brothers fill my store with heaven's treasures, which alone are real. Okay, I read that. This is the law of love fulfilled. Okay, love fulfilled. Knowing God is the law of love fulfilled, and thus your son arises and returns to you. And that's what our whole purpose is here: to rise up and return to God. That's what we're given to do. And the Course says, when the Course says that I need do nothing, that's what it's referring to. I need do nothing but rise up to the love of God, which is there for us. And once you know it, you're home free. That's it. You need do nothing more. It seems the ego tells you it's very complicated, and it's too hard to understand that, but it's not too hard to understand it when you really lay it out and recognize that it only makes sense. What else does the ego give us that makes sense? Whatever God tells us, whatever we read in truth in A Course in Miracles and know in truth in our hearts is what makes sense. And that will lead us home to God. So I want to turn it over to you, Dove, because you're talking about love and revealing it so well.
Well, okay. I wanted to take a look what section we're in, this whole section of lessons 341 through 350, where love seems to be on every lesson, every page. And the title of this section is one of the 14 what is questions. Notice there's no what is love question in the 14, but there is 13, which is the one we're on, is what is a miracle? And it says a miracle is a correction. It does not create nor really change at all. It merely looks on devastation, which is another word for sadness, anger, hatred, and reminds the mind that what it sees is false. It undoes the error, but does not attempt to go beyond perception or exceed the function of forgiveness. Thus it stays within time's limitation. Yet it paves the way for the return of timelessness and love's awakening, for fear must slip away under the gentle remedy that it brings. So it kind of saying, at least the way I see this particular paragraph, it could be just as well saying, what is love? Which is, what is a miracle? A miracle corrects the belief in fear. A miracle corrects the belief in upset, anger, the belief in hatred. The ego doesn't know what love is because it wasn't created, wasn't given the love of God. It came in that tiny mad idea that entered into eternity, and the Son of God remembered not to laugh and took it seriously and thought that he was all alone. And whether he hated his father for doing this to him or he hated himself for choosing to be alone instead of being at home in heaven with his father where there was nothing but love, we actually made this idea of an ego, but it was born in time. And notice in the very first paragraph, it says, thus it stays within time's limits, yet it paves the way for the return of mindlessness and love's awakening. For fear must slip away under the gentle remedy that it brings. So I was thinking of something that I was listening to yesterday. It could have been Ken Wapnick. He said, Jesus did not resurrect on the cross. No, you can't resurrect when your body is nailed to a cross. And which is another way of saying, if you identify yourself with a body, you're not going to resurrect. He said, notice he had to be placed in a tomb, and he was there for a few days, and then all of a sudden, he wasn't there as a body anymore. He resurrected. So that's exactly what it's really implying in this very first paragraph. Thus, it stays within time's limits. In other words, the body lives in time, and time doesn't even exist. yet it paves the way for the return of timelessness and love's awakening. Love's awakening is the resurrection. And the resurrection happens not when I identify myself with a body, but when I am free of the body. Free of the body literally means that I have accepted the atonement for myself, that I never left home. I never left that's the idea of being in a tomb for 3 days. I never left home. You got to laugh. Remember, this whole thing started when we remembered not to laugh. We took it seriously. We were in fear, and we started projecting. Projecting means someone else is to blame for this. I'm innocent. I'm innocent. Somebody else is guilty. I didn't do this. I didn't do this. I want my father to still love me, because I would never do what it is that has happened. I would never make a world of conflict, of you or me, kill or be killed. I wouldn't do that. I want to go home. I want to go home. So, someone has to take the blame if you want to be innocent, but there's no one else here. That's why it's a dream. It's a dream. There's no one else here. I'm always speaking to myself. You got to laugh. You simply got to laugh, really. So, what is the way home? The way home, and I was talking to Devin Byrne, and some of you know Devin Byrne. I know that Lynn knows him. He used to be a teacher here. He comes back every now and then. In fact, you hear his voice when he says, "You are listening to ACIM Gather." And there's two of them. Regis does one, and Devin Byrne does the other. So Devin has been teaching at a place called Udemy, which is like a giant schoolroom on the internet. You could study any topic, and he's been teaching on A Course in Miracles at Udemy. So I wanted to speak to him, and yesterday I got to speak to him because he has a new book. Some of you probably saw the book being mentioned on Facebook. It's called The Children's Material, which is a children's version of A Course in Miracles. I was talking to him, and he said it's really not for children. It's not like for a 8-year-old, 10-year-old. It is for, say, a teenager, or even someone in their 20s and 30s. And he was talking about, I said, yeah, probably even for parents who are course students who want their 20-year-old or 30-year-old that might learn something from the course. But he says the way it's done is that it does everything in very simple English. So there's no words that make it, difficult to understand, like the atonement and things like that, crucifixion, or there's no religious words. It's very simple question and answer kind of things that any student would start finding very interesting. So I was talking to him. I told him I wanted to teach a new course called Timeless Mind and Aging Body. So it's really my own life story, basically. I find that my body is aging just like everybody else's body, because that's what bodies do. They're born, they live, they die. But the mind can remain timeless, because mind is not body. Body is not mind. The mind can remain timeless if you stop worshiping things of time or worshiping things of the body, because that's who you think you are. Basically, it comes from that miracle principle number 7, which was mentioned here. Miracles are everyone's right. Love is everyone's right. But purification is necessary first. We got to purify our minds that thought that we were the body and thought that we did something wrong. Well, how else could I be a body? I mean, I'm hiding in a body because I don't want my father to find me, because if he found me, he'd punish me. Let them punish somebody else, let them punish those people on the other side of the world. They deserve punishment, not me. You got to laugh at this stuff. I mean, that's exactly what's going on. It's really a movie. So I was telling him that there are principles to keep your mind timeless, meaning that your mind does not age. Your body ages. Absolutely. Your body's going to age. And, whether you live like Norman Lear to 101 or you don't make it past 40, that doesn't make a difference. You're not a body. You are mind of the one mind of God. God's mind is timeless. His son's mind is timeless. But how do you keep the mind timeless? Well, in a way, my birthday lesson 133, which I talk about here all the time, I will not value what is valueless. What is valuable belongs to me, which means I'm not going to value the things, the, the gold, the jewelry, the things of this world, the bodies, the things that only money can buy, If I value those things, my mind becomes the same as my body. It will age. And my mother had passed, and she had Alzheimer's, and I've been part of a study for 10 years now of children of parents that had Alzheimer's many years ago. And I've been doing pretty well on their testing. They keep testing you every year to see if there's any diminishing. And I noticed that, as Lynn can tell you, I can't remember names, but for instance, on something that I really love, like A Course in Miracles, and I really love teaching A Course in Miracles, I have a timeless mind. Literally, it's a timeless mind. My body is aging. I can hardly move, but my mind is timeless. Over to you, Myrna.
Yeah, that's great, Dove. The
Hi,
mind, yeah, the mind is timeless because it's not, the brain is part of the body, the mind is not. The brain, it just goes with the rest of the body. So the brain will deteriorate, yeah, unless, you do the best you can with it. But if you can have a timeless mind, that's really all you need, because that will keep you completely with it. And not only that, but you're way ahead of the game, more than most young people that don't even know any of this. They're still involved in they're young and they don't know. I mean, I have learned, come so far since those early days when I was part of that youth movement, and youth movement, I don't know, it sounds like a cult, but what I really meant is that I was young, like everybody else, and thought about myself and became upset over things, every little thing that happened. And, just found that as I grew older, unless I began to understand that this is, which I was beginning to realize, that this is ruling my life, because now I was becoming depressed and I was becoming unhappy and I was becoming more sensitive and so forth. I mean, things were not getting better, they seem to be getting worse. And if you bring that into your growing years, it is going to get worse. So there's a point where you say, I have to find out really what the hell is going on. I don't want to feel this way. I reached that point. In fact, when I opened up the Course in Miracles, and I have it right in front of me, where you said miracles are everyone's right, but purification is necessary first. Well, just before that, the first thing that I saw when I opened up the Course in Miracles was miracles are natural. When they do not occur, something has gone wrong. Now, I had been a student of the Course in Miracles when I picked this up again, because I had been going through a period where I didn't now adhere to the Course in Miracles. Now I was kind of going through my own nonsense again. I was depressed because my husband died, and things were happening, and whatever it was, I had a business to run, and I was going through a very difficult period. And I'm realizing that I had not been picked up the Course in Miracles, and I had not been looking for the answers. I was finding my own answers, which was creating more difficulty that I really wanted to cope with. And then I picked up the Course in Miracles, turned it open, and I said, I haven't done this in a while. And when I read that miracles are natural, when they do not occur, something has gone wrong, and I knew something had gone wrong. That told me right then and there I was meant to see that subject and that sentence, because I knew that, well, if I'm certainly not experiencing miracles, what has gone wrong? And that brought me into the Course in Miracles to a greater degree even than I had been before, because I valued it so much, realizing that it had helped me previously, but apparently I didn't think enough of it because I let it go. And when I picked it up again, it became a very important roadmap for me, because I realized that I needed to hold on to all of its principles, because nothing is going to work. The Course in Miracles can't do it for you. We need to do it for ourselves. But this is the greatest guidebook in the whole world, because it does give you the way out of hell. And we were all in hell at one point or another. And when you realize that there are moments where I'm experiencing heaven, and the Course tells us that it doesn't just have to be moments of heaven, it can be all the time. It can be something that we can have every moment we want. And little by little, I'm trying to reach for that. And I do, I really do. When I have an unpleasant thought, when I have a fearful thought, I'll recognize it right away. And right away, I'll say to Jesus, because I talk to him a lot, actually, I just attacked myself, didn't I? Didn't I? And he always says, yes, you sure did. He always gives me agreement in that way. And then I come out of that. I come out of that realizing, hey, I don't like that feeling. I just attacked myself. Sometimes the attack can be so mild that we don't even realize that it is an attack. And sometimes we think it makes us feel good, because we feel, I don't know, we feel as if we're justified, or whatever the feeling is. But it is an attack. Anything other than love is an attack. And then when you can divide the two and realize that all there really is love that you want, then you really begin to adhere to those principles more and more. So I think growing older, Dove, is no sin at all. It's wonderful, because yes, all right, we don't need the body. We realize that. And yes, the body doesn't work the way it used to. And yes, we don't, we don't play in the same arena that we used to, where we used our bodies for whatever we wanted to, whether it be ice skating, sports. Yeah, we slow down a little bit. But if our mind can really adhere to the better, and our mind can attach itself to the glory of really what our purpose is, and when we can start to recognize it, and I think that takes place in our later years. And I'm with you on that, Dove, completely. Yeah, I may lose my keys. It's funny. I talk about my cell phone, and I say, why do I have a landline? You know why I have a landline? So I can find my cell phone when I lose it, because I'm always calling it. I'm always losing my cell phone, and I laugh at that, actually. But it's not losing the cell phone that shows that you're losing it. You're losing your mind. It's if you forgot what the cell phone is for, then you have to start worrying. You lose your keys, it's okay. If you forget what your keys are for, and then you have to start, worrying. So on that note, I'm going to turn it over to you, Dove.
All righty. Thank you so much. Yeah. It's like, I just happened to glance at my 12 core themes of A Course in Miracles, and I saw something that didn't have like where it came from. It always says text, chapter, section, paragraph, whatever. And I just posted it here in the chat. I also posted it in the room. And it says, to know your perfect God self. You got to see the perfect God self in all that you meet. Now, of course, I got that from the Holy Encounter, which is in ACIM Gather for the last dozen years, chapter 8, section 3. As I see my brother, I see myself. As I treat my brother, I treat myself. As I think of my brother, I think of myself. If you're going to want to remember your loving self, the one that God created as the loving Son of God, you must see that in your brother. That's exactly what it says in the clarification of terms, section 5. Jesus was a man who saw the face of Christ on all that he met, and he remembered God. So obviously that's where that came from. Then I wrote right after that, if this is not possible right now, which obviously for a lot of people it's not possible, stay open. Stay open means that, I don't really know what anything is for. Stay open. That's lesson 25. And then you go to the Holy Spirit and say, well, what is this for? I mean, why do I have a relationship with a person who doesn't love me, right? And invite the Holy Spirit to lead and show me his vision, not mine, his vision. His voice calls gently, speaks to me of my own sameness. Oh, that's a good word. Sameness, equality, oneness, sees my oneness with my brother and the love of God. I mean, Holy Spirit doesn't see two-ness. He sees what's real. He sees what is. He sees what God created. He doesn't see two-ness. He only sees oneness. It says our true identity is constant. That's why you have a timeless mind. Our true identity is a timeless mind, constant. It doesn't move in time like, oh, I forgot this. I should remember this. I got a plan for this. No, I have an eternal, timeless mind. We've always had a timeless mind. The Course uses the word in your right mind. The right mind is where the Holy Spirit and Jesus lives in timelessness, along with the Son of God when he remembers that he's not in his right mind. It says, this is truth. We are one. The truth frees the Son. Love the truth. Because those three words, love the truth, was what was given to me at the time of my awakening, spiritual awakening when I was 32. First 32 years of my life was total ego. And I realized that I was mistaken, and I cried for hours, which I call orgasmic crying. And at the end of the crying, there was a sign that was given to me. It's just like that guy in the white truck with the white uniform and the white dog came, and there was emblazoned in my mind a younger me standing in the garden with a T-shirt that said, "Love the truth." I said, "Really? That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to love the truth. Really, that's what I'm going to do." I don't want my first 32 years of my life again. I want something that's true. Obviously, that wasn't true at all. That was pure lie. The ego is sometimes called the liar. I also want to point out that the books I was mentioning from Devin Byrne, Lynn Johnson wrote in the chat, says, "I'm going to be a representative for this book. I'll be selling it for Devin." And probably I'm looking at a picture of it because she sent me a picture of it. It's a pretty thick book. It's and he was explaining it's not for children, but it's for we're all children. Yeah, we're all children. So we meant for a young mind that wanted to learn quickly. This is obviously he was teaching this at Udemy, and he found it was something that worked, and he put it into book form. So if you want a copy of that book, uh, not for your children, or maybe it can be for your children. I actually thought of you, Sharon, that you have a couple of sons that may be a son that might really want to, he kind of knows what the Course is saying. He might really benefit from a book like this. And I can think of a lot of other mothers who would like to have their children kind of understand what it is that they already have found to be true for them. So I'll pass you on over to Lynn, because she is now the representative selling the book here at ACIM Gather. Okay, without further ado, Myrna, this mic is all yours.
Yes, what you were speaking of. Glorian had posted something, the changeless dwelling place. I like that. She posted that sentence, the changeless dwelling place. And it really is in sync with what we're talking about. We're living in a place that is changeless. So with God, nothing changes. Everything
Exactly.
is always as it was, always, from the beginning of time and all through eternity. We're living in this dwelling place. That is, we never left. We only think we left it. And in that thought of having left, we created something that was beyond our control. I think you had once mentioned the Garden of Eden, where they have no, they're in God's love and God's embrace, and suddenly they're so fearful because they think that they just disobeyed God and God would find them, and now they were aware that they're a body. I have no, they're naked and they don't like it because they realize, they're ashamed, and so they left the changeless dwelling place. So Adam and Eve is probably just a metaphor as to showing us where we went wrong when we developed the ego's thought system and left that changeless dwelling place for a place that we thought we'd be more comfortable, our own little world. And we created the ego, and therefore, just look around and we see where it's gotten us. And God allowed us to because we were bestowed with free will, this is what you're creating, and you just live with what you created. And it's but nothing ever really happened anyway, according to what we've spoken about. We just dreamed that we left it because it has no reality. You can't separate from God. We thought we separated from God, so it took us to a place that we thought our reality had changed, and we started to fear God, thinking that we sinned, and that's where it all came from. The thought of sin was resurrected by the ego, not by God. And it's that thought that becomes so fearful at times that it's hard to recognize that there's a whole new world that we're not making the best of. And that's when we get into understanding and knowing that somehow we need to find God's love and need to realize, well, we don't have to find it, it's there, but we have to get back to it. And God is there waiting. And once we discover that, it's such a wonderful feeling of that that I'm not lost, that I'm found, that God never left me, that anything I see that frightens me is just a dream. And once we see that, I know my husband, Charlie, he wasn't a Course in Miracles student, but he used to say to me that when you have a problem, 9 times out of 10, if you do nothing about it, it goes away on its own. Problems are really created. We create them without realizing that we have. On some level, we haven't really, because things happen that we have no control over. But what we do have control over is how we deal with it, how we deal with any problem, and recognizing that the changeless dwelling place is the place in God's heart, and we're connected to that place. And that there's nothing that can change that. And so then, thinking about that does give me a feeling of love, not only for myself, because I'm beginning to recognize that I do love myself. I never knew that before, but I know that I love myself. And when you love yourself, it's because you're feeling God's love, and you're feeling it, you know that it's there, and you're also now feeling it around you. You know, the energy around you comes in that form. The people that you meet, the places that you go, the connecting with your brother on that level. And that's where it all becomes a truth. You recognize the truth. That's the reality of the way things are. So I give it back to you, Doug.
All right, that was perfect synchronicity because you said, I really do love myself. I know I do. And I was just about to show, I don't mention this book a lot. I don't know if you can see the book. It's called The Open Mind, Loving Your,
Oh,
The Open Mind, Loving Yourself. So this it's a book
I
that,
have to get that.
yeah, well, if you have my other book, Into Oneness, do you have the
Mhm.
Into Oneness?
Yes, of
Yeah.
course I have that.
That's the
Yes.
same. That's really the same, just a different cover, different
Mhm.
title, but it's the same book. It
Oh,
was,
it's your book?
yeah,
Let me
same
see
book
the title. I love it. Love yourself.
called
Uh-huh. Yeah.
The Open Mind, Loving Yourself.
Uh-huh.
So, and that's really about the idea of what is a miracle. What is a miracle is the what is question for the 10 lessons we're in right now from 441 to 450. And we was talking, what is a miracle is another word, it's a synonym, it's a homonym synonym, I guess, for what is love. The course doesn't ever talk about what is love. Uh, I guess I can't think of her name. Who wrote A Course of Love. It was scribed the same as A Course in Miracles. But basically, A Course of Love and A Course in Miracles is really saying the same thing. A miracle is remembering that you are the love of God. But what does a miracle take? It takes a correction of perception, which is another word for forgiveness, because I gotta see it differently because I always thought that I was a victim, and in fact I'm the dreamer of the dream. I made it all up. I really am the son of God. I really am. And then at the very bottom, and this is why it says the open mind, loving yourself. The open mind is the 10th characteristic of the teachers of God. The first one being trust. And it takes developing trust to have all the others like honesty, generosity, patience, faithfulness, defenselessness, and open mindedness. So exactly at the end of page 473 in What is a Miracle? What is Love? He says, this miracle is taken first on faith because to ask for it implies the mind has been made ready to conceive of what it cannot see, does not understand yet. Yet faith will bring its witnesses to show you that what it rested on is really there, and thus the miracle will justify your faith in it and show it rested on a world much more real than what you saw before, a world redeemed from what you thought was there. Miracles fall like drops of healing rain. Love falls like drops of healing rain from heaven on a dry and dusty world where starved and thirsty creatures come to die. Now they have water. Now they have love. Now the world is green, and everywhere the signs of life spring up to show that what is born can never die, for what has life has immortality, has eternal life, has timelessness. You are mind and not a body. You resurrect, you rise up. You don't get crucified except when you choose to see that you are not what you are. That's all this course is saying. You
Yeah.
you chose to see what you're not, you are. Now see what you truly are. You are the Son of God, the love of God. You are what you are looking for.
Yeah, I was looking for, I know I have the book, A Course in Love. You mentioned it. I know I have it. I couldn't find it. I went to look for it, but I found this. This is what,
Ah!
there you go. And I love it. I really do. I mean, it's just wonderful. Anything that reflects love is wonderful. And this is full of it, really. You're right. you know, the way you exemplify in this book. I love it.
Okay. Thank you. Mary Perron, thank you. Yeah, Mary Perron is the scribe for A Course of Love. So
Okay.
Mary took a look at a Course of Miracles and said, "Hey, listen, a miracle is love. This is a Course of Love. It's the same thing. Absolutely the same thing." John Mundy would be proud I said that. Because, you know, he sold half of Miracles magazine over to A Course of Love. So A Course of Love, which is Glenn Hoverman, which people know Glenn from what's the name of the book?
Age of the Heart.
Age of the Heart. Yes. So
Yeah.
Glenn is a publisher of books. He now publishes Mary Perron's book,
Mhm.
Course of Love. Okay, I think that's it for us. Thank you so much, Myrna. Thank you, everyone listening, tuning in, joining. Thanks, Oz,
Here's
Sharon,
my Heather.
Regis, Lynn. Lynn, I hope all is well. Turn this mic back on. Over to you.
Thank you so much. And I'm heading off to the doctor in just a few minutes. So,
Hope you feel better.
thank you. I love you
Yeah.
guys.
Yeah.
Bye, all.